Any volunteer to review? I need one person to review, please. Let's review what we've done so far, and then we can move on to complete it. Mhm. Yes. Anyone to review? Hello.
Hi, madam.
Yes. I'm listening. We need someone to review what we've done so far. Okay. So, in order that I don't waste more time, let's let me do my review. Okay. So we started with EVT434D, issues in food safety and sanitation, and we said we're interested in looking at different aspects of food safety, foodborne illness, food poisoning, etc. And we said that anytime we talk about foodborne illness, it is a term that we use to describe symptoms of sicknesses or illnesses that arise from eating or taking in food or water that contains infectious agents or a toxic substance. So all the talking we've been doing is not only on microorganisms. We also talked about toxic substances. We looked at important terms like food safety, assessing wholeness of food, making sure that there is no harmful substance that may cause any injury or sickness. And we said this food poisoning or foodborne disease can be caused by when you eat the contaminated food with the toxic chemical, or you can eat food that the microorganisms have produced the toxins in. So they may not necessarily be present, but because they had already produced toxins, the toxins will be available to cause harm to your body. We also looked at food intoxication. We said when the toxins they produce is outside the body, the microorganisms, then we talk about intoxication. So poisoning and intoxication, that's the distinct feature between them. We also looked at cross contamination, when you transfer these microorganisms or toxins from contaminated food to any food, so that it also gets contaminated. We also talked, Ellen, we also talked about food hygiene, the conditions and measures that ensure the food is safe for future workers. We looked at a few pathogenic microorganisms. We said microorganisms, there are three main types: the pathogenic ones that cause diseases, and they've had the beneficial ones that we use for food fermentation, etc., and those that cause food spoilage. Then we looked at the past, when an organism makes on another organism, benefits. We talked about pesticides. We said we are interested in pesticides because most farmers use these pesticides to control, all kinds of things on their pests on their farms. And sometimes when they use too much of it, or when they use it and harvest the food, when it has not, completely been depleted out of the food, then we have a risk of, eating some of these pesticides being, and these pesticides tend to cause sicknesses. We also looked at residues. It's in line with the same pesticides. When it's too much, you have some stain on it, and eating that particular food could create problems for you. We looked at tolerance level. We said the maximum amount of the residue that can cause harm. We looked at additives as substances that are normally consumed in food. They are not the main source of food, but they are added for different reasons: for preservation, for color, for flavor, etc. We talked about all that. Then we moved on to look at Terms like toxicity, margin of safety, that's the concentration that would normally be used, and that which becomes a hazard, which causes harm to you. That little difference is what we call margin of safety. We also looked at adulteration. When you alter the quality of food, we looked at several examples. When you add yellow color to yam so that it looks like puna to deceive people when you fry it. When you add ground cola nuts to pepper, dried ground pepper, powdered pepper, it's all that kind of adulteration. When you add too much sugar to honey to sell, it's adulteration. Okay, then we also looked at why foodborne illness was a critical concern, why we should be concerned about it. We said it's for our survival. To function well in all our societies, we need to stay healthy. And we also said that now foodborne illness has become a big deal. Food safety has become a big deal because of certain trends in global production, processing, distribution, and preparation of food that is creating avenues for unsafe global supply of food. And we said that the food safety will help us to reduce the burden of foodborne illnesses and associated diseases. Okay. Then we want to look at why most people are at risk. People who are most at risk of these foodborne illnesses. We said the developing fetuses, infants, young children. Why? Because their immune systems are a bit lower than the adults, healthy adults, and also the elderly who have compromised immune system. We also talked about chronic diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure. We looked at people with acquired immune deficiency, AIDS. We looked at people who receive immune system suppression drugs, especially those who get organ transplants. Then we looked at what causes most foodborne illnesses. We said during production of crops, the water we use in irrigation, in watering, etc., is a great source for crop contamination. We also said meat during slaughtering, during packaging could be easily contaminated, even during processing. When employees, engage in unhygienic practices, unclean equipment, when they go past what do you call it, cleaning protocols, testing and training, all these points where contamination can occur easily. We also talked about chemical residues. We looked at some sources of foodborne illnesses, undercooked raw meats, contaminated juices, fruit juices, contaminated milk, etc. We looked at bacteria infections like gastroenteritis, which is inflammation of the lining of the stomach and intestine. We have looked at hepatitis A. We have A, B, C, D, similar characteristics. A and E, they are viruses that contaminate food during harvesting, processing, and preparation, and can cause liver damage and even fatality where you die. So hepatitis is not a good thing. It's usually spread through contaminated food and water. Hepatitis B can be spread through human body fluids, etc. Okay, we also talked about the worms, the helminths, those that, if you get worm infestation, it tends to eat on all the food that you take, absorb the nutrients. And whilst the worm is growing big and nice, like the tapeworms, the flukes, the roundworms, you will be, dying slowly. So they are equally important when it comes to foodborne illnesses. We talked about Giardia, which causes gardiasis. We mentioned protozoa, which causes waterborne illness as well. Then we went on to look up some types of toxins. Remember earlier on we said even if the microorganism produces a toxin and it's no more in the food, but you eat the food and the toxins are present, you still fall sick. So what we call the neurotoxicity, they damage the nervous system and can cause paralysis. Botulism is an example. Then we have the enterotoxins. Entero tells you estero, entero, all this. This is the other. It's caused by it is caused in our gastrointestinal system, and the signs and symptoms are severe diarrhea and vomiting. We also talked about some fungi or fungi, whatever way you pronounce it. Those are the yeast molds, etc. Said they also produce some toxic mycotoxins, which can also cause organ damage or even cancer. We also talked about some poisonous mushrooms, mad cow disease in beef, etc. And also those who like the clams and mussels and adode, apophine, all those things, which live in the bottom of the water bodies. They feed on filter, they filter the water and take in all kinds of algae, etc. And so when you love to eat these things, you want to prepare them very well because they are high risk for foodborne illnesses too. We also looked at how to shop to reduce the risk of foodborne illnesses, and that you should select your frozen foods last, the perishable ones, so that immediately you finish, you go home and make sure you store it well. So, for example, you are going to buy some canned sardines and tinapa, etc. You want to buy those ones first before you go and buy your fruits and vegetables. And when you go in to buy your fish or meat, you go straight home and take care of those. You want to avoid buying foods with damaged containers. We said that, especially for the canned ones, you should check for leaks, bulging, denting. When it's dented, you don't take it. When it has an awful odor, you don't eat it. When the container is bulged, it means there's some gaseous production by some microorganisms. So you avoid them. We also said that avoid recut produce. Some people go to the market and they want to buy the meat that has been cut small at Mayanka. They want to go and buy container and they want the person to cut for them. I don't know. You want to avoid those pre-cut things because most of the time they are not fresh. That's the risk of causing these foodborne illnesses is high. We should also learn to buy enough of what we need, especially the raw food, so that you don't have to keep it for too long a time. We said when you are preparing food, make sure you wash your hands thoroughly with soap, warm water, etc. Anytime you visit the washroom, make sure you do the same. Make sure you clean and keep your counters and cutting boards, everything neat, clean. The equipment that you use for cooking, your dish, your plates, etc. Okay, we said you should be very careful with using non-porous materials such as plastic, marble, or glass, because people prefer, glass and things. They don't retain odor and smells and other things. We said do not keep frozen food outside the refrigerator. Thaw it in the refrigerator. And or you could do it in a microwave or something. When you leave it outside, remember microbes grow in different temperature ranges. And as long as it's outside and there are some microbes around which can thrive in that room temperature, you are sure they are going to contaminate your food for you. During cooking, you want to make sure your fish is opaque. It flakes easily. When it's too dull and things you want to worry. For seafoods, you want to make sure they are translucent and shiny when uncooked. And it's better not to do partial cooking. Cooking and leaving it halfway, and then so I'll continue tomorrow, that kind of thing. You give room to these microorganisms. And also, when it comes to storing and reheating of already cooked food, you want to be careful. Keeping it outside outside the fridge for 2 hours, 1 hour is not good, because remember that the weather is a bit hot, and these microbes will be thriving in your kitchen or wherever you leave the food. And even before you eat, they can infest it and give you problems. When it comes to leftovers, they must be heated very well. Okay. We also talked about specific microorganisms. We looked at hepatitis. We looked at the mode of transmission through oral fecal contamination of food, drink. And remember, shellfish. I keep repeating these clams and things that you find at the bottom of this water body. You want to be careful about it. They carry a lot of these. Then we also looked at the digestive system, how the hepatitis A virus enters, multiplies, reproduces in the liver, enters your bowel, and then releases whatever it's releasing later into your small intestines. You feel nauseated, you have diarrhea, fever, jaundice, fatigue, anorexia. Sometimes you can't eat well, you eat, you throw up, and you end up losing weight, etc. How do we prevent these things? We prevent them by strict hygienic measures, proper sanitary handling, proper disposal of waste and excreta, thorough cooking. And then, fortunately, we have a vaccine that is called Haverix that you can take to protect you from getting the hepatitis. Then we also looked at hepatitis E, same from drinking water, beverage, etc. It enters the blood as well, gastrointestinal tract, replicates in your liver, and then releases the hepatocytes in the bowel. The same symptoms as nausea, etc. And that is it. Then we also talked about the prevention, as usual, hygienic measures, proper sanitary handling, proper disposal of waste, and thorough cooking. Thorough cooking. We looked at cholera caused by Vibrio cholerae, which is a bacterium. 2 days incubation. The toxins that it releases causes inflammation of the gut and diarrhea. We have the mode of transmission through human carriers. So if someone has cholera and you come into contact with the person's feces, you are sure to get it too. Once again, shellfish. Infected shellfish, you eat, you get it. Eating and drinking contaminated food and water, you get it. The same symptoms: vomiting, severe diarrhea, cardiovascular collapse, and death. So cholera, if you take it lightly, can kill you easily, because your cardiovascular system will collapse. And once that collapses, breathing becomes a problem and other things, and you end up dying. The same prevention, cleanliness, washing your hands, purification of water, treatment of sewage, etc. Okay, then we moved on to typhoid and paratyphoid, caused by the Salmonella typhi or paratyphi. 8 to 48 hours. It takes longer than the cholera. Found in raw meat, even eggs, poultry, eggs, fish, and pasteurized milk. And when you don't eat, refrigerate your food very well, or you don't reheat your food leftovers very well, then you have the risk. The symptoms are same: nausea, fever, headache, abdominal cramps, diarrhea, and vomiting. And then we also looked at Escherichia coli, also a bacterium, 2 to 4 days as the incubation period. Usually obtained from undercooked beef, fruits, vegetables, yogurts, etc. You have bloody diarrhea, abdominal cramps. And the prevention again is when you cook your meat very well. No pink color. Pink color means that there's still some freshness, you know. Avoid drinking unpasteurized milk. Those who take the raw milk, you want to avoid that. Then we came to Clostridium botulinum, which is also a bacteria, or bacterium, plural bacteria. Okay. Then you got the bacterium Campylobacter jejuni, raw and undercooked poultry, symptoms, diarrhea, stomach pain, cramping, fever, etc. Then we looked at listeriosis. It's also a bacterium. Fever, muscle weakness, nausea, and diarrhea. Staphylococci food poisoning. We looked at that. We looked at, okay, so those are the specific microorganisms that we looked at that are common in causing foodborne illness. This is not to say that you could come across other bacteria, okay, but these are the most common ones. Then we talked about the other sources of contamination in food, the mycotoxins, the tapeworm. We said the mycotoxins are a group of compounds that are produced by fungi, that's yeast and mold. We looked at some examples, aspergillus, flavus, etc. There's the one that first rises, so riser, you know, according to the aspergillus is the peanuts, etc. Okay. Okay. So we looked at all that and we moved on to how to prevent them. We said these microtoxins cannot be destroyed by heat. So the best thing is avoidance, prevention. Mm? When you see bread with a lot of, you know, growth on it, don't say I'll cut it and eat. Because these fungi, they grow. They have a root system called rhizoids. So as you cut it from the surface of your bread, the roots may already be inside your bread. So you want to avoid eating such things. Okay. We talked about tapeworm. Then we came to preservatives, the addition of preservatives, so food preservatives. We looked at different types. You said it could be natural, it could be synthetic. Example, sugar, salt, you know, in the olden days, spices and those things were what they were using to preserve. Then we looked at antioxidants that prevent rancidity in oils and fats. Examples, propel gallate, that is added to mayonnaise, ice cream, potato flakes, etc. We also talked about propanoic acids that are added to fruits, apple, strawberry, etc. Then we looked at antioxidants as additives, sulfides, sodium bisulfite, sodium dioxide, anti-browning agents, anti-bleaching agents, sulfides. All these things are added. So for meat, you have the nitrates and the nitrites that are used in improving the color of meat and at the same time as an antibacterial agent. We also looked at irradiation using alpha, beta, gamma rays. to prevent sprouting in potato, in onion, and also to inhibit fungal spoilage of these foods. We have additives such as spices, grains. We have additives in the form of okay, let me put it this way. When you use irradiation to preserve foods, it tends to destroy some of the vitamins, especially the AEK, and then the water soluble one is the B1, the thiamine. It destroys it. So when you irradiate food, then you should know what you'll be losing from it. Um, you could use beetroot, etc., for coloring of fruits, drinks. When you add vitamin E to fat-based products, it prevents rancidity. When you add vitamin C, it serves as an antioxidant. Okay. Then we have vitamin D and folate. All these are additives. Then we looked at some basic terms like grass, generally recognized as safe. We looked at genetically modified foods, persistent organic pollutants like DDT, etc. And then we looked at the reaction that could be gotten from some of these additives, like skin rashes, liver damage, cancer, reproductive system disorders. We looked at growth hormones and antibiotics, etc. Then we moved on to the principles of food safety. We looked at the HACCP hazard analysis critical control points. We looked at control points 1, 2, how it started. I explained to you that first we had this total quality management where you produce something at the end of it, it's tested to see whether it passes. And at that point, when it fails, it's a problem because then you would have wasted all the ingredients, the effort, the time, etc. So this system, HACCP, was introduced as a way of controlling foodborne illnesses and also protecting, total loss from these things. And so it's looked at as a flow diagram or a flow chart where you look at each step along the processing line and identify probable risk. And depending on the severity of the risk, you enable it either a critical control point 1 or 2. And all these things were to ensure that the risk of foodborne illness is reduced at each step of the production line. So we say that the HACCP is used to identify and control potential problems before they even occur. It's a preventative method. Okay, then we also looked at how it started in 1973 with only 3 principles: identifying assessments of food hazards, documenting the critical control plans, and establishing a system to monitor it. As time went on, in 1989, 92, 97, other components were added, like the validation, the verification, the monitoring, etc. So at a point, the 3 principles increased to 7. By 1992, 89, 92. And then record keeping was also introduced. Between them 8. Then another preventive measure that protected food from foodborne illnesses is a good manufacturing practice. We describe the conditions, like through processing, packaging, storage, determining whether practices and conditions are clean enough. So we said, for example, in food production areas, you put on an apron, preventing, cross-contamination of any microbes that you may be carrying into the food. the use of gloves, the use of nose masks, the use of hair covers, etc. These are all associated with good manufacturing practices. Then we also talked about risk assessment, assessing the risk of emerging chemical contaminants in food. We gave examples like the melanin in baby food, milk, methyl mercury in fish, benzene in soft drinks, etc. And then we also talked about the processes during manufacturing, during packaging, the endocrine disrupting chemicals and the nanomaterials that end up in our foods. We said for the risk management, it is um, controlled by a risk management framework where inputs are indicators of risk which relate to food. Prioritization becomes a problem because it becomes important because you weigh the public health importance of whatever inputs to address the risk. Then you process, that is gathering and communicating information on the data. Then you make a decision, determining the action to take, and you implement. So the input prioritization, the process decision, and implementation. Then finally, your outcome, and you modify as you monitor and evaluate. So today we'll talk about the last topic. Hopefully, yeah, it is the last topic. We'll talk about water quality. Water quality. Anytime we talk about water quality or quality of anything, we are looking at, we all know the characteristics of water. We said water is colorless, odorless. It has a neutral pH, is a universal solvent. That's why so many things can dissolve in it. All these are characteristics. So to talk about water quality, we are interested in looking at the chemical, physical, and biological characteristics. Chemical, physical, and biological characteristics of water based on how you use it. So the standard is measured against the use of the water. So if it's drinking water, the quality we will need to assess will be different from if it's water for swimming. Okay. So always remember that the quality of water is determined by the intended use of that water. Okay. So we want to determine some physical-chemical properties like dissolved oxygen, pH, negative logarithm of hydrogen ions, pH, temperature, salinity, and nutrients. So what is the level of nitrogen? What is the level of phosphorus? So based on intended use of your water, these are some of the things you'll be looking out for. So we want to look at when your water quality doesn't meet these things, then we start looking at how to treat it, whether to make it potable or for industrial or domestic use. When you take water, okay, when you take water, it can contain microorganisms such as viruses, protozoa, bacteria, etc. It could also contain inorganic contaminants such as salts and metals, as we have now in Ghana. We all listen to the news and we hear how water and sewage is investing so much in alum and other chemicals to treat the water. Because now, because of the galamsey and other things, we have a lot of heavy metals in our water. And it takes more effort to treat these things to make the water clean before it gets to our homes for our domestic use. You could also have organic chemical contaminants, like from industrial processes, petroleum use, pesticides, herbicides, and even the heavy metals I spoke about. Once you cannot you just use your, yes, there's some water that immediately you see, you know this is no good water. Because when you look at the basic characteristics of water, it doesn't have it. You cannot look at water and determine the pH. No. You cannot look at water and without testing determine the what do you call it? The dissolved oxygen. No. But you can look at water and when it's cloudy, you can see and say that this is cloudy. And so there are certain characteristics that can be seen easily by the naked eyes, others you need to test. We have three main types of water testing. Three main types. And basically, okay. So we usually test water based on the bacteriological test, which would normally check the presence of bacteria. Or, example, total coliform, fecal coliform, Escherichia coli. And whatever you find in the water during a bacteriological test will give you an idea of any microbes in your water. Different microorganisms have different tastes. Okay. When I want to check, let's say, Vibrio cholerae in any water source, there is a special agar, what you grow microbes on, that you prepare for that. Then we have chemical tests. So first mention bacteriological tests. Then we have chemical tests. The chemical tests will usually help you to determine the amounts of mineral and organic substances that affect water quality. Okay, so what will be some of the minerals and organic substances that could affect water quality? I've been mentioning some along the way. So what are they? Class. I've been mentioning some. What are some of the chemical tests that you need? Yeah, please, Ellen. Is it Ellen? Yeah, Ellen, please talk.
Madam, please, mercury.
Mercury. What about organic substances?
Debris from plants.
Okay. Debris from plants, yes, good. It will even be the we have some natural pesticides. People use neem and things to produce. They are organic in nature. So you can have any of these things there. And so usually if you test, you say you are conducting a chemical test, then the amount of nitrates in any water, amount of sulfides, and all those things that will be under the chemical test. Thank you so much. Okay. Then we have the physical test, which is basically for the properties. Physical test, basically using the senses. What are the senses? What are the five senses? What are the five senses that we have? Ellen, do you want to talk? Or Margaret or Patience or Martha? Who is talking? Dorcas.
Martha. Yeah. Prof,
Mm-hmm.
please. The eyes, the nose, um, ears, and then touch.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are our senses.
Mm.
We said that water is odorless. It shouldn't have any smell. So when you smell it and it smells, it's a physical test. Tells you it is not safe. Mhm. When you look at it with your eyes, water is supposed to be clear, but it's cloudy or something, it tells you it's not safe, isn't it? Water is colorless. You look at water and it's greenish or something, it tells you it's not safe. So those are the physical tests that you can use to determine the quality of water. The chemical test you use to determine minerals and organic substances, and the bacteriological test to determine the microbes in water. We have factors that we look at that affect the quality of water, like the amount of dissolved oxygen, is an indication of the quality of water. Like the pH. What did I say about pH? I said quality water is known to have a pH of 7. It's neutral. So when you're having the pH of any water being acidic or basic, it means the quality is not good. Okay. Decayed organic materials, pesticides. When there is erosion and washes soil, sand into your water, it can affect the water quality. When there's runoff, when there's sedimentation. So all these things are factors that could affect the quality of water. In Ghana, we have some agencies that are in charge of, monitoring our food safety and sanitation in this country. Food and Drugs Board is one. I know we all know. Okay, if we don't know, please learn that the Food and Drugs Authority are in charge. And that is why when you watch TV, every advert, it says, Sir Nkratwe, this advert is approved by the Food and Standards of, what do you call it? Food and Drugs Authority. Another one is the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. All the noise about Galamsey and our water bodies being destroyed. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, they're also in charge. Then we have the Food, what do you call it, Standards Authority or Board. It used to be Board, now it's Authority. They are the people who give you certification to say that, oh, this food is safe, you can sell. Can say that this person is healthy, the person can sell. All those things. Mm. Just a minute. Mhm. Okay, so Ministry of Food and Agriculture, they're also in charge of, the quality of food that we eat. They monitor food safety, agri fisheries, etc. That's what they do. So these agencies help us to set standards and also to ensure the safety of our food supply. Foodborne illness, we all know that it's a public health issue. As the population increases, there's a lot of mass production of food. Combination of different ingredients from different sources, different processing facilities. All these are high risk of food safety issues. Sometimes food companies hiding certain ingredients from consumers. And for the fact that from the farm to the table, anything can happen along the processing line, even during transport. We also have some laws that are supposed to guide our food safety. When these laws are not enforced, when there's no, how do you call it, continuous inspection, monitoring, then our risk continues. Now let's look at food spoilage. You remember I said that there are three main types of microorganisms: the pathogenic ones, which are the disease causing ones. We have the beneficial ones that we use in food fermentation. And we have the spoilage ones, they just spoil foods. How do we prevent these? We can prevent food spoilage using so many natural methods. Common salt, sodium chloride. We all know that it slows down the action of a lot of enzymes due to osmosis. I hope you understand the word osmosis. Someone should tell us about osmosis, diffusion, etc. Osmosis, what is osmosis? If you don't know, you check it up and we'll move on. What is osmosis, please? What is osmosis?
Yes, hello, madam.
Talk.
So it is the movement of water molecules from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration through a semi-permeable membrane.
Thank you. Thank you. So it means then that when you add salt to any food material, fresh, especially for preservation, it draws away the water, reduces the moisture contents, so that a lot of microbes. We also, when we were learning about microbes in microbiology, we said they thrive within different pH, different water activity, etc. So that is the essence of the osmosis and how salt, through osmosis, is able to prevent spoilage. Then we have addition of sugar. Sugar is usually added to retain color, shape, and texture. And sugar does the opposite of the salt. It replaces water that is removed from the cell. We have drying dehydration, which also helps to reduce moisture. So that microorganisms cannot grow because the water activity is not right for them. We have our traditional smoking, which also destroys microbes and also prevents the microbes from producing toxins, thus, preventing food spoilage. Then we have cooking at very high temperatures so that it can destroy the basic bacteria that may cause spoilage. We have modern techniques that can improve food safety, like the industrial canning, which eliminates the spores of Clostridium botulinum. If the spores find their way into the food, with time, they will break up, hatch, and grow. But during canning, because you sterilize the can, at very high temperatures before you put in this. It's able to destroy the spores. So that ideally it is safe. That's why we say that if you buy any canned food and it's bulging, it means that some spores have found their way there and has contaminated the food, producing oxygen and bulging the can. In the same way, pasteurization, which is the use of quick heat to destroy microbes. When you heat at 75 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes, you are able to destroy most of these microbes, the spores, everything. There's also a lot of innovation in packaging techniques, which is also helping to improve our food safety. When you take the aseptic packaging, where sterile, products are put into sterile containers and sealed, aseptic packaging. We have the modified atmospheric packaging, where the oxygen in any package is removed and replaced with an inert gas such as nitrogen or carbon dioxide. It's the oxygen that these microbes need to survive. But when you take it out and you put carbon dioxide or nitrogen, then they will suffocate. You'll be killing them because they will not meet their oxygen levels and they cannot grow to spoil the food. We have the high pressure processing, where food is subjected to very high pressure and which will tend to inactivate bacteria. Okay. Then we have some mandatory information that needs to be provided on food labels as a food safety measure. I hope you all know that by law, you are supposed to label any food you sell once it's processed. So the cassava and the plantain on the market, I'm not saying it should be labeled. I'm saying that the processed foods, once you process food, you need to label. You need to, some of the rules per the law of labeling, you need to use the common names. You need to provide the name and address of the manufacturer, distributor, etc. You need to provide the net content in terms of weight, percentages, etc. You need to provide the ingredient list, the serving sizes, the number of servings per package. So if you say 15 meals, 15 this, 20 grams per serving, it should be labeled on the thing. You should tell us the specified nutrients. What is the total fat? Out of that, how much is saturated and unsaturated? Date of production expiry must be there, or what we call the best before date. What is best before date? Before I continue, what is best before date? Instead of expiry date, some products have best before dates. What does that mean? Quick. If you don't know, you look it up and we move on. What is best before dates?
Yeah, hello, madam.
Yes.
So the best before date refers to the date printed on the food package. That tells you how long the food will remain at the best quality.
Very
in terms
good.
of the taste or the
Very
texture.
good. Yes, very good. So for best before date, if it says, let's say today is 2nd November, right? So if the best before date is 2nd November, all that is saying is that to get the optimum best quality, the optimal quality from the product, it ends after 2nd November. That doesn't mean that you cannot eat it on 3rd November. You can, but it will not have the quality that is expected. But when they say expiry date, 2nd November, please don't even try to taste it on the 3rd. Is that okay? Okay. Then we have the nutrition information or facts. Then we have what we call the health messages. Okay, the terms and the concepts. Some of the health messages are when you see a red heart, a heart is drawn on a product and it's red, it tells you that it is good for cardio health, heart health. So when you look at the how do you call that? When you look at the cereals, cornflakes, the different types, we see that some have this red big heart on it. It's giving you some information that it is healthy for the heart. Okay. Apart from that, there are other things. You need to declare everything so that people who are allergic, so you can see allergen, then they'll put something there. That is why it's very important that you read food labels, please, before you use the product. So you need to list the weight of all ingredients in descending order. So those that have the higher weight, they come first. You need to list the percentages and some of other health information you add. It's certain additives. If you added some sweetness or some additives, you need to state it. It's part of the health information you provide. Okay. Then, what is the significance of all this information? For your address, for your name, if there's an issue, they can trace it back to you quick. And remember, we said you arrange the ingredients in descending order. So the first ingredient that appears has the highest quantity. Total sugar. So the sweetness that will be listed will give you an idea of total sugar. Even the type of fat, saturated, unsaturated, how do you call this third one? The fat imagine, what's the name? So fatty acids, and all those things. So it gives you an idea of what you are eating. Once again, it's very important that you read your food label before you eat whatever food you eat. The information on the preservatives is important because if you have any allergy or you react to any of them, then you know this food I should not be eating. When it comes to serving sizes, it can be expressed in both common household measures, like a cup, 2 cups, those white things that we use to measure. So cups, grams, metric units. Okay. You express these standards, the things you write there, the amounts, in what we call the recommended daily intake. We have a recommended daily intake for all kinds of nutrients. RDI, daily value DV, reference daily value, reference daily intake RDI, recommended daily allowance RDA, daily reference values DRV. All these are terminologies that are used to state how much and quantity wise of these nutrients you find in your food. You could either present the quantity of these foods in grams or percentage of daily values. Why? That is the way consumers can evaluate the contribution of individual foods to their daily diet. When you look at the food and you look at the food label and you look at the per serving, it gives you an idea whether you are meeting the required, daily standard for individual nutrients that you find in your food. Food labels should show the total food energy. That's the calories, the food in calories. It should give you total carbohydrates in grams. It should give you total fat, saturated fat, cholesterol in milligrams, saturated fat in grams, sugar, dietary fiber, proteins, etc. You also realize that there are some food items that you have certain terms like free. Now we have what they call zero, Coca-Cola, zero this, zero that. There's a meaning. It means without. Either no sugar, zero amount of sugar, or whatever. All that tells you that the food material or the food does not contain any of these. And then we have it what we call high when it's above a certain amount, a standard. Then we say high. You can have low, less, etc., etc. All these things help to give you an idea of what is happening in the food. So it is very important that before you consume any food, you should know what is in there, how much of each, whether you are meeting your standard requirement or not. For one, food safety, and two, for good health. So if you have not been doing it, please do it. That's why in Ghana, people are able to sell expired goods to us, because when we go to the grocery shop and we are picking things, we do not check. We should be checking. We should be checking. Okay? For food safety and for good health. This brings us to the end of the course, Issues in Food Safety. Please make sure you read about the food laws, acts and laws. Do we have a class next Saturday? Or today is supposed to be the last week? I was getting confused. Mm-hmm. Hello?
Yeah, hello, madam.
Are we supposed to have a class next week?
No, please. Next week is revision.
Okay. So you make sure you read about the food laws. The food laws are partitioned into four. The first one talks about the general, considerations, and then you have food, beverages, etc. You have the the people who control these laws. You have equipment, batteries, etc., medications, etc. So the four different sections. I want you to read it. If you have any questions, you can put it on the platform. And when I say read, I mean read. So you have to know the composition of those who put together the food laws. The representatives. So we have a representative from the Department of Nutrition and Food Science at Legon. You have a representative from the Ghana Bar Association. And there are reasons for bringing such reps on the board. You have, and so start thinking about them. The names I'm calling. When I finish, I'll call you to tell me why. So you have a rep from the Nutrition and Food Science Department at Legon. You have a rep from the Food and Agriculture Fisheries. You have a rep from the Standards Authority, Food Standards Authority. You have a rep from the Drugs Authority, Food and Drugs Authority. You have a rep from Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. You have a rep from, I've talked about Agric already. Yeah. Okay. So you have all these reps. And then a chairperson. And sometimes they bring a rep for consumers. Why do you think we need a pharmaceutical representation? Mm-hmm. Why do you think we need a lawyer on the board? Why do you think? Mm-hmm. Margaret, you want to say something? A pharmacist, because the medication, the pharmaceutical, the pharmacy shops and the chemical shops, etc., need some protection, isn't it? So that people will not be selling expired drugs and things to people. We need someone from the law, the bar association, because should inspectors go around and they make some recommendations and they are public uproar and they need a lawyer to go and defend. Food and agric, fishery, they should be telling us what is happening. That's why now these days they talk, hey, at Atiwa Forest, we are finding mercury in the food. We are finding this, warning us that we should know where we buy our food. And telling Ghanaians that if we don't take a time will come, we'll all die. If we don't stop collapsing. Okay, so please, I don't know. I haven't set my questions, but I can ask a question on that. And you don't have an excuse to say you don't know, please. So that's why I said I've given the gist of it. There are 4 parts. Read it. The chemicals, etc., the food and chemicals, the composition of the committee, and all those things. Read. If you have any question, put it on the platform, and I'll respond. Okay. And as you revise next week, when you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put it up. Okay, thank you. When you put it up, you realize I haven't read it or responded. Please let me know. Give me a personal message. I'll check. Sometimes I guess we're busy there. I don't know. So if you have any questions, you can put it on the platform. If you have any clarification, feel free. You can talk about it so you write it. Please, can we meet sometime tomorrow and finish the food chemistry? Or when will it be good for you? Let's talk about that. Or we can just wait and catch up Tuesday when we meet. Would that be okay? Our usual time.
Okay, madam. The Tuesday is okay.
Madam,
Okay.
Tuesday is okay.
Okay. So thank you so much. And have a good evening.
Good evening, Prof. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much. God bless you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hello, Prof.
Bye.
Hello, Prof. Hello, Prof. Dojo wa.
Ajo la boy. Ali lo majo.
I wanted to ask if we'll be meeting Tuesday for
And
the.
that's what she told us. She said Tuesday.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Tilly. But I question
Yes.
call. I be a question. Then you must a question now.
Every
A
day,
composition.
of the agencies that are monitoring food safety and sanitation.
Okay.
Alma wake up mo problema.
But I could capture Dolana. But I know that my fee no one some with the with at it.
Ala baby conversations.
Sister, mother is your apema.
Eh,
Madi chavide. My
o
boy, you
baby
know,
mo
Tadi,
kodo.
I'm not have.
E mangu lesson utabara sukula. Magbo
Oh, only ba.
magbo. Ah, oh sister.
Oh,
Magbo to class aba kuba ko ko mala baga mo o. Mo so de mo kwede man choma lo fi bu manya ngre bere kunoji.
oh, Baba na.
Abo madam ha gbe etegbere je o sha no ngre no ta fi otrogbolo.
Eh, la. And no thing, me out girl.
Oh,
But
sister.
the cuckoo, I look at Madame, I will put in a quidula number. Look at bolo.
Makon kalora.
I'll be a question. I'll be a question. I don't come my went overnight. I do, but that's the composition of what. I say,
Of
you do see.
agencies that monitors food safety and sanitation in Ghana.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Namanya maprebima.
Eh. Yo, come here, dogo.
Yo Tom.
Akpe.
All right.
Ima. I'm the orange, right? What's it? Eh. I saw it.